With that, we'll go on to the presentation tonight, speaking about protecting our community. This is going to be a rather detailed presentation. I will ask the council to please hold your questions to the end of the presentation so we can work our way through it. Perhaps during the course of the presentation, the questions that you were contemplating will be answered, but I think that'll be the most efficient method. For those of you in the public, this is a presentation for which we will not take public comment upon specifically. However, general public comment for non-agendized items will follow the presentation. Each member of the public is afforded an opportunity to speak to items of their interest within the jurisdiction of the city of Petaluma. You may wish to address your thoughts at that time. Chief, thank you for being here tonight, and if you'd please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. What we're going to do tonight is give you a presentation in two parts. The first part will give you an overview of the South Napa earthquake. This was provided to us from the after-action report from Napa. We'll give you an overview of that, and then we'll conclude with a presentation about how the city of Petaluma is prepared, and I'm going to have Chief Schock do that for us. So let's get started. First, an incident overview. The earthquake in South Napa occurred on Sunday, August 24th at 3:20 a.m. Earthquake measured 6.0 on the MMS scale. Epicenter was approximately 4.2 miles southwest of American Canyon, 6 miles southwest of the city of Napa, and 9 miles southeast of Sonoma. Significant damage occurred in the downtown area, the Browns Valley area near the fault zone, and the earthquake claimed 1 life. Approximately 300 people were injured. Because of the large volumes of calls, the incident command system was set up by the city's fire department. The Napa police transitioned to set up the incident command post until the EOC equipment arrived. EOC became operational at 6 a.m., which was approximately 2 hours and 45 minutes after the earthquake. Because of the large volumes of calls, briefings were held each morning to obtain activity updates from the EOC staff. This was the information was used for press releases, social media updates, the daily press conferences. Staff developed incident action plans to help coordinate the IAP, to help multi-agency operations and maintain situational awareness. Call center staff recognized the need for a call center. Call center became operational 48 hours after the EOC. Call center staff focused on calls requesting building inspections and other assistance. A large block of backlog calls prior to the EOC center being set up needed response. You can imagine that having to wait 48 hours, there's a huge backlog of calls to be handled. And the call center handled approximately 2,400 calls during that time period. The recovery mode. 5 days after the EOC transitioned into a recovery mode, the city of Napa was engaged in a wide range of response and recovery activities with Napa County, American Canyon, Napa Valley School District, and a host of special districts and community organizations. More than 60 organizations and an estimated 1,500 individuals supported the response and recovery efforts. So that's kind of an overview of the incident itself and how the city responded. The after-action report was very detailed in recommendations, also in processes and things that Napa did well. Some they did not do so well. I'm going to give you a quick overview of what those recommendations are. The report is quite extensive. It would take probably several hours to go through it if we took every bit of information. Recommendations. Command. Identify command staff that are subject matter experts in leadership positions. Additional training for staff with specific incident types. Earthquakes, wildfire, floods, chemical spills, terrorist activities, things like that. Emergency Operations Center. Conduct regular training in setting up the EOC, conduct regular EOC training exercises. For Napa, the setting up the EOC had a hiccup. They actually brought the wrong trailer to the EOC, and they were able not to set up the EOC. They had a large delay as a result of it. So knowing where your trailer with your equipment is very important. They had a hiccup when they brought the wrong trailer. Automated notification system to alert all EOC personnel. We are currently working on that for it's one of our takeaways from this. Initiate a call center as soon as possible. We don't want to have a large backlog of calls to handle. It'll just create a big backlog of responses to our community. Operations. Improve communications between the EOC and field personnel to obtain timely situation awareness. Probably one of the most important things that we can do is to know what's going out in the field. So having communications with your field resources and knowing exactly what we have available and what they're doing is of the utmost importance. Have supervisory personnel respond from AMR for ambulance control and PG&E to the ICP to manage personnel for dispatching. I think when you have a liaison in those areas, it becomes critical on expediting responses to emergencies. We should also have probably a PG&E representative at our EOC to help as a liaison between PG&E and the Emergency Operations Center. Planning. Additional sections, specific training for staff. As we go through this, you'll notice that one of the key elements to all of this is training. Continuous training all year long is vital to keep the system active and appropriate. System for staff to check immediately in after an event. Provide a process for better communication with the field. Logistics. Develop a resource management process. Coordinate with county EOC to clarify requesting assistance from the EVC, which is the Emergency Volunteer Center. Assess the possibility of establishing pre-positioned contracts for goods and services, something that could be very beneficial to us instead of scrambling at the last minute to get contracts, say for an instance for food. If those were already in place, all we had to do was make one phone call to get that initiated. Finance administration, consider creating position-specific checklists, establish key section positions in the first operational period. I think this is most important to have your first team, and we're thinking of having more than one team, but your first team, say in the first operational period for the first 12 hours, so that you've got your best foot forward, and those folks really know what they're doing after getting extensive training. Establish a comprehensive disaster resource tracking mechanism. That's also important. You've got to know what you have in order to deal with a disaster that's put in front of you. Provide additional training for staff. There we go with training again. Legal. City attorney work with building department to update building tags outlining owners' responsibilities. City attorney to work with city clerk to address public records requests. Now we're into probably several days as we talk about this now, and the information needed to deal with this is continually coming in. And remember, it's a big challenge for us as a city, not only to deal with this emergency, but we all have regular jobs. And it's tough to deal with your regular responsibilities and still provide your expertise to the EOC. Liaison, conduct periodic updates of contact information and conduct regular testing and testing of the contact information. Consider working with PGE to better track dig sites. Consider working with the Red Cross representative at the EOC. Public information, this is a very, very important part of the EOC. Establish and activate a call center immediately after the incident. Training for public information staff and updates to PIO manual. Have field staff direct media communications to the PIO. Identify press conference schedules to external partners. This is the way that we're going to communicate with the citizens of the city through our PIO and our press conferences, and they have to be well coordinated and the information to be very succinct and information that will help the public move through the disaster. Safety and security. Review safety, security positions in the EOC, additional training on safety briefings, procedures, and protocols. Consider creating safety and health briefing templates. I think we have some of that in our operations manual. Consider coordinating with the PIO, translating some of that safety and health information into multilingual formats. This is after things have settled down a little bit, and we want to talk about recovery. The damage assessment process. Establish an effective approach and tools for tracking damage assessment information. Consider when buildings are tagged, whether it's appropriate to take pictures. Develop a plan and process for ordering and deploying inspectors. Develop a central base with preset information cells for efficiency. Those are all things that will help us be more efficient and get the process through much quicker. Consider additional information with tags addressing services provided by our inspectors, assessing the damage. Consider developing a process for communicating with county and state for Section 8 clients. Protocol for damage assessment teams to communicate with the EOC. That's, the last one is probably one of the more important ones, the communication between the damage assessment teams and the EOC. Work with PG&E to process, to coordinate, and communicate during damage and assessment process to ensure gas and electricity remain intact as appropriate. There are buildings that are damaged that are red tagged, people can't go into, but they're also damaged that are minor, and people, if they're not in their homes, they're going to be displaced, and we have to consider dealing with those kinds of incidents and making sure that those people are helped. Encourage residents to request damage assessments through the PIO messaging. Debris management, one of the things we don't really think about, but we have to deal with in earthquake scenarios. Develop a formal debris management plan with criteria for selecting processing sites. Identify pre-stock resources to aid in a rapid response. Additional debris management training. Assess the potential for developing additional mutual debris management agreements. The four things I think that we have to consider after seeing Napa's problems and challenges that they have is that you have to develop a protocol for to access and establish the EOC. You have to have ongoing training for all your staff. You have to have a backup staff, not only for in case people are away, vacation, sick, but also as a relief for the initial team that goes in. And lastly, make sure that the contact information, the contact information is correct and that it's being updated all the time. That is kind of a brief synopsis of what happened in Napa. We're going to now move to what Petaluma is doing and how we're preparing for a major event. So I'll present Chief Schock.
Mr. Mayor, ask a question of the chief before he gets away.
Sure.
Let's not get too detailed into questions
No,
because it may be answered in interest of time. Go
In
ahead.
the recovery mode, how soon did Napa get assistance from the state of California or from FEMA, federal FEMA?
I think it was quite delayed. I don't have the exact information, but I can get that to you.
Okay, but the point being then, for a period of time, the communities were on their own.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we have to remember that anybody in the community has to prepare at least 3 to 5 days without any assistance because of limited resources in the city.
Thank you. Let's proceed. And the chief will be here through the presentation, is my understanding, if there's questions after we hear the entire presentation. Thank you.
All right, good evening, and thank you. My name is Jeff Schock. I'm a battalion chief with the Petaluma Fire Department. As you may have heard, I'm a 15-year employee. Thank you very much, John Brown. I'm here to talk to you today about what the city of Petaluma is or has done to prepare. Now, we prepare a couple years ago. It was 4 times a year, a couple times a year, once a year. That's just the stuff we do in preparing for disasters here in Petaluma. Things like the Napa earthquake, my phone starts ringing, about, oh, what can we do, what can we do? And so thank you for the opportunity to get to brag a little bit about what the city of Petaluma has done to prepare for things like this. If it weren't for the South Napa earthquake, I'm sure the movie San Andreas would have got the same questions maybe, just so you know it's not real. So anyway, here we go. What has the city done? The city of Petaluma is prepared for many types of emergencies. As you can see from that slide, I'll let you guess, 3 of those 6 are from right here in Petaluma. A couple are from Napa. Our emergency operations plan and what we're prepared for goes from everything from wildland fires to major fire integration to our conflagrations, flooding, active shooter. We're prepared for everything. It's not just for earthquakes. These are some of the things that give the city of Petaluma the responsibility and the authority for what we do in training and preparing for emergencies. These are also mandates that we have to follow in order to receive. Councilmember Albertson talked about reimbursement. The city of Napa had a big had a nice amount of reserves, so they were able to float on their own for a while before they got reimbursement. But some of the things we have to do is to meet these state and federal mandates so that we're eligible for reimbursement from the federal and state government. Disaster response, it's a whole hierarchy. It could go from every day we run a house fire or a vehicle accident. There's a whole system that might go and just go up to within the fire department, or we might need to go into the state, federal levels, and this is kind of a graph of showing how that works. It's not just a hodgepodge system. The state and federal government have plans in place. You might have heard SIMS and NIMS. Those are things that whether it's information flow or coordination, depending on the type of event, the size of the event, the complexity of the event, on how big an event will go, whether you reach towards just your operational area, the state level, or the federal area. We have an emergency operations plan. You might have read it. The city's emergency operations plan, it covers everything that we're responsible for and what we do in the case of an emergency. I won't read it all to you, but it's the goals of the city to prepare for disasters, and it covers pretty much every scope of what we need to do. We have an emergency operations center. This is at one of our trainings. The emergency operations center is at the police department. It's actually in the police briefing room, and it's an area where we get together to coordinate when there is a disaster, to coordinate field response and support field response. City manager serves as the emergency operations director, and then senior staff, a lot of people that are in this room, or senior staff and their subordinates, are the ones that staff and fill those key positions within the emergency operations center. In the Emergency Operations Center, the stuff that you can see, it's broken down: management, operations, logistics, planning, and finance. Experts within the city, within each of those areas, fill key roles within those positions. And we use, as you see there, the incident command system and SEMS and NIMS for unity command and span of control to help organize an incident. Everybody within the EOC follows a specific playbook. We have checklists. There's a playbook. So it's not everybody gets in one room and we try to figure out what's going on. We train on this, like I said, at least annually. We're prepared for many different types of events, and there's protocols to follow for each person. Each person within city government that fills a role has a specific role within that emergency operations center. Challenges we have in the city, one of them is, and this is common, facilities vulnerable to structural collapse. Police stations, fire stations, City Hall, the emergency operations center itself could be damaged in events such as an earthquake. One of our other big challenges is getting the public to understand what their responsibility is. We only have 15 firefighters on duty per day. It's about enough people to manage everyday emergencies. Same with police, public works. When there's an incident like an earthquake, the challenge is getting people to understand that they might be on their own for a little while. I think we've done a pretty good job with getting the public to understand that and do things like having home kits and that kind of thing. And our next thing that we're going to be working on is getting people to understand what to do actually during an incident. The chief mentioned earlier there's 300 people that were injured in that Napa earthquake. Anybody care to guess what the majority of those injuries were? What do you think? Anybody? What do you think? Falling debris, what else? Glass, stepping on glass, right? So what happens, there was one person killed, and that person died a couple days after the event from getting hit on the head. If we train our public to do a simple thing like drop, cover, and hold on, I know it kind of sounds like my CPR preach, and I won't go into that tonight, I promise. Drop, cover, and hold on. People get hurt from running through glass and from stuff dropping on their head. So if you can do the simple thing like drop, cover, and hold on, that could prevent 300 injuries in that Napa earthquake. So, you know, your house is a little beat up and you need to eat some top ramen without cooking it for a couple days and, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, that's something that's an impact, but your family being injured, the people in our community being injured, that's what really impacts the community. So our next challenge is to prepare the public on what to do during an earthquake. So we're pretty good on the preparation phase, you know, have 3 to 5 days of water and food and that kind of stuff. But be prepared to, what do you do when it actually happens? Don't run around like crazy, you know, drop, cover, and hold on to prevent stuff from falling on your head. And then know how to do things like shut off your gas if you need to, when's the appropriate time, how to get water out of your water heater, that kind of thing. So that's one of our big challenges and something that the chief has a really good plan for on how to meet that challenge. Other challenges are sufficient emergency response staffing. I talked about, you know, we have just enough people in public safety and public works and the water and street departments to take care of broken water pipes and that kind of stuff on a daily basis. Well, during a disaster, that obviously is going to impact the need of all those resources. Right now we rely a lot on mutual aid and automatic aid from other police, fire agencies. If we have a big incident, we're not going to be able to get resources from the outside for a while because they're going to be dealing with their own emergency. If it's something like an earthquake or something that's more of a regional event. Also getting sufficient trained EOC staffing. We have enough people right now in our EOC through city staff to pretty much staff about a 12-hour shift in the EOC. It gets a little difficult to find 2 and 3 people deep to be able to staff positions after that. So what have we done to be prepared? Things that we're doing right now, all new city employees go to a 4-hour class on SEMS, NIMS, and disaster preparedness. We teach people what their responsibilities are as a disaster service worker, how they can prepare themselves at home with their families, and how to prepare in their office so that they're more likely to be able to respond in if something happens and keep them safe. We do an annual EOC exercise, as I mentioned. We talk about things anywhere from an airplane crash to flooding to earthquakes. We have a city webpage that has a ton of information. If anybody wants to know about how to prepare for disaster and you think there's not information out there, shame on you. The city of Petaluma has a great website with a ton of information on what you need to do, as well as Red Cross, ready.gov. There's a lot of information. That's one of our things we're doing to help people. We also do an annual disaster fair with the Scouts. The Scouts put on a great event. Mayor Glass actually hosted it last year, did the introduction. The fire department was involved. We showed people how to turn off gas, what they needed to do to prepare. We actually taught CPR also, just so you know, there's a little extra on there. There's lots of things like Red Cross and other agencies that are very well attended by both people and by organizations that were wanting to help out and help people get prepared. We also do things like partner with other agencies. We partner with Rebuilding Together Petaluma to help out with things like strapping people's water heaters in their homes so that when there's an earthquake, they don't have a gas leak from the water heater falling. And we also do, we do community presentations, the Aquas Cafe. We've done senior mobile home parks and just talk to people about what they can do to better prepare themselves. I'm rushing along here a little bit because I know my time is getting short and I want to leave plenty of time for questions. We also help out Homeowners Association. Adobe Creek Homeowners Association is one of the biggest ones that we're helping with. They're very proactive and preparing, so we help them with advice. I go to their meetings, and we've done some stuff like helping them reproduce handouts for their neighborhood. And another thing we're doing, we do a great job every day on preparing for disasters. A lot of the things that came out from the Napa After Action Report, we already do. But those are things, even though we do them, there's ways that we can improve what we're already doing. And other things that like, hey, we never thought of that, so we'll check it out and see if we can do that better. So listed on here are a couple things that we're doing with preparing our EOC. We work hand in hand with our partners at the county level, Sonoma County Fire and Emergency Services. They run the Sonoma County Operational Area EOC. We work with them, Region 2 for mutual aid for any disaster resources, and then also private agencies like Red Cross, PG&E, and that kind of thing. So with that, that's what the city of Petaluma has done to prepare for disasters. And if you have any questions, myself or Chief Thompson are available.
Thank you. First Councilmember Albertson, then Councilmember Kearney, and we'll go from there.
First, my thanks to staff, the city manager. We've been asking for this for a period of time to see the presentation. Is excellent. Thank you very much. Just a simple recommendation, consider inviting representatives from the school districts, and PVH, Petaluma Valley Hospital, maybe into the EOC, have a liaison from those entities. And this meeting is being recorded on government access television. And I would ask that government access, if they are able to cut and edit this presentation and run this presentation itself on a loop for general viewing, I think that would be advantageous, and I hope that that can take place. Thank you both for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Kearney.
So I have a couple questions, and as the chief knows, I used to do this for a living full-time, and so I'll try and be fair in my questioning. So I noticed at the end, one of the things I wrote down from the Napa part was the 3 deep training. One of the things that's like the common practice in emergency management is having folks 3 deep, and it looks like as though you've identified that you're going to work on that, which is great. Do we have an alternate location for the EOC identified? We do.
We have our primary EOC is at the police station. We have 2 alternate sites identified, which are the sewer treatment facility, and then also the public works facility on McDowell, right across from Kmart. And one of the challenges with that is having enough access to those facilities and then also having the material required. So one thing we're looking at right now is all of our emergency operations paperwork and graphs and charts and all that kind of stuff that we have to have hard copies of in case computer systems and such are down. That's all at the police station. We're looking at putting that all into a trailer, so it'll be stored at the police station as our primary, but if something were to happen to the police station, that trailer could be moved to any of the alternate sites to be used there.
And so that leads perfectly into the next question I had, which was, do we feel that we have everything we need for our EOC to run effectively? Or have we identified things that we don't have that other EOCs, like at the county EOC when that's set up, have we seen what they do, and is there anything we can glean from them as what we can improve upon?
Are you talking about material things, or are you talking about staffing?
Yeah, like I didn't see in the photos like a laptop in the whole place or a phone. So do we have adequate phone lines in the EOC to handle those folks working in there for 8, 12, 42 hours?
Kinda.
Okay. So
one of the challenges is our EOC is also the police briefing room. So right in there is a huge challenge. The county has an EOC that's a dedicated room about the size of council chambers with tables, dedicated laptops, and telephones. The only time it gets used is for EOC activations or EOC training. So for us, one of the challenges is moving into the EOC, is moving all our stuff, and setup is a challenge. So facilities and staffing are challenges we have that we're working on and trying to identify ways to make that better. But there are 5 dedicated laptops for the EOC. The challenge is keeping those updated so when people log on, it doesn't have to go through all its system upgrades. We do have phones we can plug into every spot within the EOC. But it is definitely a challenge.
Wonderful. One of the things that the county does is that the volunteer hazmat team is their designated staff to set up the EOC, and the police department's really done a great job of getting new volunteers. So maybe that could be something that we assign to them and train them in how to set up the EOC.
Absolutely. That's something we're looking at right now for a role for volunteers in assisting us with setting up the EOC and providing us some additional personnel.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. On training, the Center for Domestic Preparedness, which is part of the Department of Homeland Security, they provide training for free. Either the staff get flown out and go to a training, and door-to-door costs are covered free of charge. All we have to pay for is the salary of those people going. Have we sent folks to any of their EOC trainings, or I know they have ICS 300, 400. They have ICS Train the Trainer. They have a whole variety of classes that are offered. Have we sent, or they'll come to you and provide the training for free as long as you provide a location?
We have not sent anybody to that specific training, but we have sent people to UWASI has covered stuff through local grants at the county level. We've had local county classes, both in Marin and Sonoma County, where we've sent people. Quite a few EOC section chiefs have attended that type of training. One of the challenges, and I hate to use that word too often, but one of the challenges is everybody that's within the EOC has a full-time job, and a full-time job that's that has many high priorities. And the EOC, unfortunately, as in anything, if you know, just like people at home, right? You're taking care of taking your kids to soccer and making dinner, and maybe not doing your disaster preparedness kit, because that's something that can wait. And that's the same challenge we have with city employees. They're busy, they're doing good work, they're doing hard work, and it's hard to leave for a week to go to Arlington, Virginia to take a course. So that's definitely something that we look at, and we try to do as much as we can with the local training and take care of that 1 to 2 day classes that are local that we can.
Wonderful. I have 2 more questions. You mentioned drop, cover, and hold on. The Great California Shakeout happens every October. Are we preparing in that, or participating in that, and really pushing the business community and the schools to participate in it as well in a coordinated fashion?
That's yes. The last 3 years we've participated in the California Great Shakeout, which is now, I think, about 40 of the states are participating in it. And we're participating again on that day this year. We're going to be participating in the Great Shakeout. 3 years ago, our EOC drill was coordinated with the schools. We do training with the schools. We do training with Petaluma Valley Hospital, and they are part of our EOC operations. And yes, we do that. When we did it with the schools 3 years ago, it was a very good event. We haven't done an outreach yet to the business community, but that's something we could definitely look into for future exercises.
Wonderful, thank you. And the last one is, do we have a system or a process in place for managing volunteers that might arise when a disaster happens?
The Human Resources Director, her role in the EOC is to coordinate volunteers. So yes, there is that assignment within the EOC. She has a checklist, and that person, she has an assignment to deal with that.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Additionally, we're right now developing a plan for a temporary assistance from a temporary worker to come in and organize a volunteer program for us. So that's going to be part of our next phase in this.
Thank you so much.
One of the concerns that this city has faced with the use of volunteers can extend into liability issues that can prove to be very challenging and expensive. And so sometimes free becomes most expensive. And so as we walk down that path, I want, for people that enthusiastically want to volunteer to their community, there's a reason sometimes why no, thank you is the proper answer. So if we reach that, we need to not be shy about coming to determination that perhaps volunteer is not where we're capable of going in some areas. There may be other areas where there's no city liability or whatnot, but I know there's a lot of good-hearted people that hear, oh, the city's looking for volunteers, and they really want to help, and we really want their help, but it's sometimes, unfortunately, in that regard, no is the proper answer. I don't know if you want to address it or not, but I wanted to just kind of put that out there into the public forum.
Absolutely.
So we do have a history with that. You're absolutely right, and the chief's been advised of that. What we're looking at is more of a program where it's more of a potentially an educational thing where we're not actually having volunteers, but similar to what the police department does a very nice job with their citizen academies and education. That might be more of an aspect that we take. Now when a disaster actually does happen and we have volunteers, that falls under a whole different realm. It's different than what we've dealt with in the past. So there's kind of two separate sides, and we're very sensitive to that, and we're looking at ways to be able to use willing people in our community that want to help, but be able to use their services in a way that doesn't leave the city open to liability. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of our main goals in this next phase is to make the citizens of the city self-sufficient, and so that there will be no need for, say, volunteers in an organized way like we've had in the past. So that's what we're trying to deal with.
Thank you so much, because I know this city. I know people will be, clamoring to volunteer, and they won't maybe be receptive to. There's ramifications to that, so it isn't always the solution or always the answer. But thank you for that. With that, is there any other questions at this time? I want to thank you for the presentation very much, and thank you for your work. And Thanks. We're going to work our way through the agenda.